Welcome to deep, dark depths, where the shadows whisper ancient secrets and reality bends into your absolute worst nightmares tonight. Tonight we open the archives to reveal 3 terrifying true accounts. Stories sent in by viewers who survived the unexplained. From childhood traumas to entities that invade the safety of our homes, these tales will make you question your safety. Our first chilling tale takes us back to the year 2008, inside a quiet and old house. Young Jim, only 8 years old, was spending the night at his grandmother's place, sleeping soundly in the guest bedroom. He woke up suddenly in the dead of night, an inexplicable feeling of dread washing over his small, trembling body. The hallway outside was pitch black, a void that seemed to stare back at him with a silent, heavy intensity. His eyes were drawn to the bathroom door, which stood slightly open, revealing nothing but deep shadows and cold silence. Suddenly, he noticed something white fluttering near the doorframe, a piece of cloth swaying gently in the stagnant air. It looked like the sleeve of an old dress, dangling there, mocking him with its slow and deliberate back and forth movement. Then his gaze drifted lower, and his heart stopped as he saw a foot stepping out from the dark shadows. It was not a human foot. It was black as coal, the skin dry and cracked like ancient burnt wood. Paralyzed by fear, the young boy clamped his hands over his mouth, praying that the thing would not notice him. Just as quickly as it appeared, the foot slid back into the darkness, and the white cloth fell completely still. He dove under his covers, trembling violently, trying to convince himself it was just a nightmare conjured by his mind. Curiosity fought against his fear, and after what felt like an eternity, he slowly lowered the blanket to look up. What he saw next froze his blood. A dark shadow was walking across the ceiling, defying gravity and all logic. The figure stopped directly above his bed, a silent sentinel of darkness, staring down at the defenseless boy below it. He shut his eyes tight, refusing to look anymore, and eventually, exhaustion and terror dragged him into a restless sleep. The morning sun brought a false sense of safety, illuminating a room that looked completely normal, as if nothing happened. He checked the floor by the bathroom for footprints or dust, but there was absolutely no trace of the intruder. The ceiling was spotless, white and empty, leaving Jim to wonder if he had truly seen a monster that night. He never told his grandmother, fearing she wouldn't believe him, but the image of that cracked foot haunts him still. We leave the grandmother's house and travel to a broken home, where a 10-year-old boy named Paul faced terror. Paul grew up in a house filled with tension, his parents' marriage crumbling, leaving him feeling isolated and vulnerable at night. One night, driven by thirst, he crept downstairs to the kitchen, trying to stay quiet to avoid waking his parents. As he filled his glass, his gaze drifted through the sliding glass door, out into the deep shadows of the yard. Under the old oak tree, he saw a silhouette, a man who was impossibly tall, standing perfectly still in the dark. Suddenly, the figure began to convulse violently, jerking its limbs in a way that no human body should ever move. Paul stood frozen, the glass shaking in his hand, unable to look away from the horrific dance under the tree. The convulsing stopped instantly, and the figure turned its head, locking its gaze directly onto the boy in the window. A voice seemed to penetrate the glass, calling out his name, Paul, over and over, with a gravelly, mocking tone. The stranger bent down, grabbed a handful of stones,
and began hurling them violently at the glass door and Paul. Thud after thud, the stones struck the glass, each impact sending a fresh wave of terror through the paralyzed boy. He glanced behind him, praying his parents would wake up, but the house remained silent, leaving him alone with the monster. The entity seemed to know him, aiming specifically at his feet, laughing a silent laugh that echoed in Paul's mind. Finally, breaking his trance, Paul stumbled back, dropping his glass, the sound of shattering crystal breaking the night's silence. He scrambled up the stairs on all fours, heart pounding in his chest, never daring to look back at the yard. The next day, the yard was empty. No stones, no footprints, just the silent oak tree, standing as a witness. Paul never forgot the convulsing man who knew his name, a memory that would stain his childhood forever with fear. Our final story takes us to Idaho, where a father and daughter faced an entity that refused to leave them alone. Pamela's father was a rational man, sleeping soundly in his room, unaware that something had entered his home that night. He was awoken by a distinct, cold touch on his leg, a sensation of fingers pressing down through the heavy blanket. Thinking it was his daughter needing comfort, he opened his eyes, ready to speak, but the words died in his throat. There was no one at the foot of the bed, yet a sudden, crushing weight settled heavily onto his chest. Staring back at him was a black cat, but its face was twisted, deformed, and possessed by pure, ancient evil. It grinned with a malice that no animal should possess, pinning him down with a force far greater than its size. He tried to scream, to thrash, to throw the beast off. But his body was frozen, locked in a silent struggle. Suddenly, the creature leaped off him, darting across the room and vanishing directly into the solid wall, like a phantom. He sprang from bed, flooding the room with light. But the wall was solid, leaving him questioning his own sanity. He tried to dismiss it as a nightmare, but the atmosphere in the house had shifted, becoming heavy and oppressive. Weeks later, both father and daughter were in the living room when the darkness decided to manifest itself once again. In the corner, a shadow stood, about 4 feet tall, a solid patch of darkness that absorbed the room's light. This time, they both saw it. A shared hallucination, or an undeniable reality standing right there in their living room. The figure moved silently, gliding towards the hallway, marking its territory and proving that they were no longer welcome there. That was the breaking point. The family packed their bags and fled, leaving the house and its dark entities behind. They never looked back, but one wonders if the shadow still waits in that empty house for the next family. 3 stories, 3 different lives, all touched by the unexplainable phenomena that lurk just beyond our field of vision. We often believe our homes are fortresses, but these tales remind us that walls cannot keep out the supernatural. When you turn off the lights tonight, ask yourself, are you truly alone? Or is something watching from the dark? Fear is a primal instinct, a warning signal that our ancestors developed to survive the predators of the ancient night. We tell ourselves monsters aren't real, but for Jim, Paul, and Pamela, the monsters were as real as you. Locks and bolts may stop a thief, but they offer no protection against the entities that can walk through walls. The world is full of dark corners and deep depths, where logic fails and the impossible becomes the terrifying reality. These stories serve as a testament, a record of the unknown, warning us to respect the boundaries of the supernatural. Once you see the darkness, it marks you, leaving a stain on your memory that no amount of light removes. So tonight, if you hear a creak in the floorboards or see a shadow move, do not investigate it. Stay under your covers, close your eyes tight, and pray that it is just the wind and not a visitor. The night is long and full of terrors, and we are merely guests in a world dominated by the unseen. 3 in the morning, the witching hour, is when the veil is thinnest and the stories we heard come alive. Have you ever felt a presence in an empty room? That intuition is your survival instinct screaming at you. Mirrors are portals, windows are eyes, and your home is a stage for the entities that dwell in the deep. Cherish your safety, hold your loved ones close, and never invite the darkness in, for it may never leave you. If you survived these tales, hit the like button and subscribe to ensure you don't miss our next descent. Thank you for watching Deep Dark Depths. Sleep well, and remember, the shadows are always watching you from the corner.